I want to talk to you about the best pitch ever. If you are a startup owner, if you are a startup founder, if you are a startup sponsor, you want to watch the show because I'll be explaining to you actually what's the best pitch ever. Okay, and as has been seen on many TV shows, especially when it comes to the Shark Tank. Okay, so first of all, if you want to have a winning pitch deck, you want to pay attention to the ingredients. The ingredients not only in terms of the ability for you to have to explain your relative advantage, that's important. The pitch for your product should easily convey the advantage of your products over existing standards. So the key here is to identify advantages over existing standards. Okay, so it's one of those things where you are speaking about introducing the solution to the market. Your solution cannot be at the same level at whatever is existing now. You are bringing something revolutionary to the market, so you got to really show your relative advantage. Now, relative advantage is kind of similar to a competitive edge. You can use those two terms interchangeably. Okay, your pitch should clearly articulate the problem that you are wishing to solve, else you may end up actually with a great product that no one really needs. Okay, so you have to really understand that you want to beef up your storytelling. You also have complexity, so you should be able to explain your pitch to a 14-year-old or a 60-year-old and get them to understand it. It doesn't matter whether they agree with the value, but they should be able to understand the value. Okay, so that's one of those things where, and you have to be concise. So if you take more than a minute to help understand a problem and value, then there is a strong possibility that you have not understood the problem yourself. Can you imagine that? Basically, you have a solution that actually fixes the problem, but you do not have a clear understanding of the problem yourself. You're gonna lose credibility real fast if you were to deliver that pitch to experienced investors. Okay, so you want to make sure that you understand you can identify the advantages over existing standards, but also you are able to explain clearly how the problem that you are attempting to solve actually are significant to society or to your target audience. You also have to think about triability. So if you're looking for the best pitch ever, you gotta besides relative advantage and complexity, you gotta think about triability. So triability means the smallest iteration to try. So a pitch backed by something triable is actually 10x more effective than just slide decks. Okay, you can show and tell instead of just telling. Okay, now all three terms are critical here. It's actually minimum. So you want to make sure that you are focusing on the triability aspect of things. So it is a product, right? You are having a product or a service, and you have to really understand how that product or service is going to fix the problem that your let's say your user base cares about. The first thing I want you to think about in terms of ingredients, you have observability. In other words, it has to be observable. Let me explain a little further. So if your product has hit the market and you have some measurable advantage to quote, then nothing beats observation. In other words, if you have traction, it'll be very useful to mention it. Okay, so with metrics, you have just graduated your pitch from ill-found excitement to empirical optimism. Okay, so that's really important. So you want to really trust the data, and also one shark. I mean, one shark has said not long ago that data is going to really save you big time. Okay, there is nothing that beats knowing your numbers. You have to know your numbers real fast. Okay, be these numbers for your product success, your revenue success, or your customer success. So you want to understand that the numbers are going to help you big time, and get your numbers right, even if you need a pen and paper for it. It's one of those things where you have to sit down, either you by yourself or with your team, and have a clear idea about what those numbers mean for you in the first place. Okay, especially when it comes to maintaining transparency across the board. That's an important element to actually think about. But yeah, those are the four ingredients: your relative advantage, complexity, triability, and also observability. Now let's talk about the preparation here. Now, keeping the five ingredients intact, you need to think about a few things, especially when it comes to delivering a good story. Okay, storytelling is really important. So, storytelling is the first element to pay attention to in terms of the preparation. I first talked to you about the ingredients, now the preparation. So, storytelling is a great way to articulate the relative value of your pitch. And the cool thing is that storytelling is particularly helpful because you are able to relate the problem to an everyday situation. And storytelling is particularly helpful when the problem is not intuitive to the audience. Okay, so it also makes your audience empathize with the problem without feeling that you are doing a hard sell. That's an important element to think about. So, for any good storytelling, you need a persona, a problem, and a solution, and the value. So, your PPSV concept. So, a persona. So, he or she is the person who is the protagonist of your story. A problem. This is a problem that your product solves, either your product or service solves. A solution. This is your product or service. And the value is actually the value that your customer gets from your product. Okay. So if you have a story worth telling, then tell. A good story, the good thing is a good story can inspire, motivate, or even get you funding. Okay. So it's an important element to think about. And what I want to say here is that in terms of preparation, you want to jump straight in. Okay. So if your audience is well versed with a problem, then taking 60 seconds to narrate the story may become an overkill, especially if people are already aware of the ins and outs of the specific situation. So that's important to think about. So if your audience is well versed with a problem, then you may begin with a probing question instead of a repeating of the problem. Okay, imagine saying something like, like, do you know how much this, and this is happening every single day, and how it is impacting millions of Americans, for instance. Okay, so if you're able to start like that, you are going to have you are able to captivate your audience right off the bat. So you want to jump straight into your solution and value after actually having a good introduction. That's going to help you because a lot of investors don't have time to actually listen to the whole thing, and you have to understand that being concise is going to help you big time, especially when it comes to fundability. Now, I think I want to talk a little bit about storyteller. You got to be the storyteller here, okay? You want to become a good storyteller. If you're not, it's important to practice. There are some characteristics of a good storyteller, or you can say few unsaid rules of good storytelling, okay? Now, you have to know your audience very well. Although earlier I was talking to you about storytelling, but now I want you to be the storyteller. You want to think about what your audience wants to hear and not just what you want to say, right? What kind of message can resonate with your audience? That's an important element to think about. You want to avoid jargons. You want to avoid repeating yourself because, again, investors don't have a lot of time, okay? So be very careful and go straight to the point, okay? That's going to really give you a lot of credibility. And you want to check whether you have some cliched words such as actually, as, such as. You want to check your hand gestures. You want to check your voice modulation, and you want to emphasize when needed. So think about your pitch, okay? And bring charisma and presence and engage with your audience. But also the most important thing is that you have to be a good listener, okay? You are here to deliver a pitch, yes, but you want to also listen to what your audience has to say. So, and finally, you have to practice, okay? If you want to get your practice, if you want to really get to another level in terms of practice, in terms of pitch delivery, you have to practice, practice, and practice. There is no shortcut to this. I'm sorry. There is no magic. There's no trick. You have to practice, okay? You have to practice your narration multiple times. You do it in front of the mirror, in front of your family, strangers, in front of any living or non-living thing. In other words, you have to get to a certain situation where you're comfortable talking about the topic. And so if you do it so many times, your pitch becomes second nature to you. And the thing is, the goal here is to make sure that your pitch becomes part of your DNA, if you will, okay? And if you practice many times, what's going to happen here is that things like your tone, your vocal tone, your emotions, the hand gestures, the voice modulation, the dramatics, all become baked into your DNA, and that's important. That's what you want. And so at times things will not bake into your DNA, but and that is okay, okay? And just breathe and start all over. It's all about repetition. Let's talk about the presentation itself. So you have your ingredients and preparation done. Now comes the presentation itself, okay? Now, one thing I want to say here is that you want to always be prepared. I don't care how good you think you are. If you're not prepared, you're going to fail big time, okay? You can find your next potential customer on your train ride home. You just never know. Or your VC may give you the 30 seconds she has while coming down the elevator. So you always want to be prepared with your pitch. And your pitch has to be sharp, it has to be short, it has to be straight to the point, okay? Now that it is in your DNA, it will be a lot easier for you to deliver because you have practiced this so many times. Think about how many times Kobe Bryant has actually practiced actually taking shots, or even Michael Jordan, for instance. I'm speaking here about basketball. And so it becomes, at some point, it becomes some kind of a part of your DNA. So practice a lot, else you could be one of the highest. You can have the most desirable product, but VCs or investors in general are not going to look at you. And you have to know your audience, okay? You have to really know your audience. If you want to really, you want to stand a chance to impress, you have to know your audience. And it's one of those things where you want to know who you are pitching to. And that's important. And you can do a little bit of research before. Do the necessary background checks on the investors or customers. Okay. I'm not, I apologize here. I'm not really talking about checking, let's say, their credit scores or checking their social media profiles to understand what they like or dislike, right? You should really understand what your audience stands for. Maybe your investors are numbers people, so you want to fine tune your finances, okay? And if the investor is a team person, then ensure you talk about your core team and the value that each team member brings actually to the table. That's an important element. So if you can speak the language of your audience, then you have the voice of God, okay? Especially if you have the ability to deliver in a let's say in a clear manner what you have to offer. Next, you have to learn to negotiate, okay? So if you're trying to really deliver the best pitch ever, you have to understand that you'll bring in value to the table, but investors also bring in resources, okay? Now that you have your value, your product, your team, your finances, and your pitch perfected, you want to play the devil's advocate. Imagine you are your audience and now start asking yourself tough questions. Question everything that you can be asked and be prepared. What do you think this is the minimum viable product? Why do you think this is the perfect team? What are your product metrics and numbers, for instance? What are your financial metrics and numbers? That's important to really think about actually in advance, okay? So what are your financial metrics and numbers, especially if you are entering an industry that has no hardcore data? You have to be able to really justify whatever numbers you come up with. Have you thought about any additional customer scenarios, for instance? Okay, and what is your moat? This is an important element, especially if you are asking investors for a certain amount. They want to know your moat. Why can't competitors easily copy your products? Especially if you're trying to really get things done in a streamlined manner, okay? And what is your competitive advantage here for you to really explain how you can survive in this industry? And what is your exit strategy? So if you're thinking about bringing something to the market, you got to have an exit strategy, okay? Especially if you are not going to be in the industry for a while, you have to pivot to another industry. What is your growth plan? How does your backlog look 6 months down the line, for instance? That's an important element. And what help do you need for your product the most? Okay. And how can the investor help? And what is your discounting strategy? And many more. So I'm just giving you a few questions here to for you to really start thinking. Okay. Struggling with negotiation skills, you want to understand that you have the ability to practice in front of your team members, in front of your family, friends, colleagues before you go to investors. That way, you would have acquired a lot of experience throughout the process. What you want to do here is that you want to wear confidence on your sleeve. It takes time, but with practice, you will get there. Okay, you will have butterflies in your stomach when you pitch your idea. That's for sure. Especially if you are in front of very sophisticated investors. Okay, VC firms, angel investors, and so on and so forth. And when the stakes are especially high, you will feel pressurized big time. Okay, so it's important for you to build some kind of muscle internally. You want to feel confident from inside. Okay, you've done a lot of work, done a lot of research. Don't discount that. Don't discount those hours, those days, those years, those months that you have spent working on your products, fine tuning it. So now it's time to deliver. Okay, be proud of your team. Be proud of yourself. So if you think about it, confidence is going to be the attire of the day, especially if you have done your research, you've done your homework. Okay, so your confidence shows how confident you are to take your product to a higher orbit. Remember, many times your investor is not only investing in your product, but also you, right? You and also your team. So that's important to master your confidence level. And finally, still be ready to learn. I don't care how many hours you've spent on polishing your products. You're not perfect. Nobody is. Okay, so you have to understand that you can also be open to a feedback. You can be open to all kinds of situations. So let this pitch also be a learning experience for you. Maybe there is something that you did not think about. Maybe there is something about the market that you are not aware of, that your investor or customer knows more about, right? And that is okay. Like I said, do not feel pressurized to always look good. You're not perfect. You're a human being, and you have to accept that. But one thing for sure, though, you have to be honest. Okay, honesty will help you big time, especially when it comes to creating credibility vis-a-vis the investors. Okay, it is okay to not know, and therefore it is okay to feel vulnerable. But one thing for sure, keep your learning hat on and learn as you present. Be confident and yet be humble. It's one of those things where you are going to have challenges. Despite how well you are prepared, you can still be rejected. You may have experts in your audience and still not understand your vision. And it is okay. It is okay. You have to accept the journey. This is part of the game, and it is what it is. In closing remarks in today's conversation, I'm just talking to you about the best pitch ever that you can really have. I spoke about the ingredients, the preparation, the presentation, and now the closing remarks. Thank you so much. God bless you. I'll see you next time. Until then, remember, stay marvelous.